with a distinguished career as both corporate lawyer and compliance specialist. She brings a rare blend of legal precision and business strategy. As the lead behind international expansion of JurisTax, which is to do with the law group, she has spearheaded firm's growth in key financial hubs such as Mauritius, Dubai, Singapore, Rwanda, and Delaware. Her expertise spans corporate structuring, planning, fiscal optimizations, and navigating complex cross-border regulations, making her a powerful voice in conversations about international trade resilience. A very warm welcome. Please take over.
Thank you so much for this lovely presentation and introduction. Yeah, so thank you again. Hello, everyone. I'm Taroonah from Mauritius. I'm very happy to be part of this fantastic webinar today. Everyone has been sharing amazing views on several topics. So I'll be talking about the legal framework to mitigate the tariff risk in which today the world is facing. So just give me 1 minute. I'm trying to minimize something here. Yeah. So as you're all aware, there have been a series of new tariffs which have been introduced by the new government of Trump and which is impacting global trade today. This has caused a lot of concern in the community of retailers and manufacturers, where there is a risk of getting a lot of disruption, be it in the supply chain or leading to increased consumer prices. This goes without saying that a number of imports today will be affected from various countries. And the thing is, what is important for us to realize, what will be the impact of those new tariffs. So the thing is, we need to talk about the impact of these new tariffs. First of all, what will happen, there will be higher costs. In terms of all businesses who are import and export, this will automatically increase the costing. And definitely, many businesses today will run the risk of closing down because impacting on their profits. The other thing that will happen immediately, that there will be a reduction in the international transactions that's happening in the world and which can affect the economic growth of various countries. And then obviously we need to touch base on the legal and the compliance risk that will happen. Today, there will be the need to adjust compliance protocols and strategies to make sure that each country is respecting and meeting the new requirements. Because if we do not do so, there will be the risk of legal liabilities or reputational damage. So what my focus today on this webinar will be what can be done eventually to mitigate those tariff risks and the burden that's looming on so many countries today, because this definitely affecting trade and this will continue affecting global imports and everything. So the first thing that each country should be considering is diversifying their target market. Today, if someone was having US as a principal market, he will be forced or she will be forced to consider other markets where he will be able to continue exporting his products, which means trying to reduce a dependency on the US market. And obviously, when we are talking about the different markets for supply, as a targeted clientele, we also need to touch base on the supply chain. So today, what will be the different other alternative for clients for businesses who will be sourcing products from the countries that are being affected by tariffs? So it becomes important to source alternative suppliers from other countries today. So the third one would be the need today to structure, and this is where I am offering the service of the firm where I'm working. It's really to consider and restructure the businesses today who are into import and export into the different markets which are being affected by the increased tariffs. So today businesses must consider whether it will not be more interesting for them to set up either a regional hub or their trading company or their investment holding company in a financial center in a country where the framework in itself is very attractive, be it in terms of tax, be it in terms of legal or in terms of regional access. So the need to consider where you are set up for your operations, your management, this becomes important to decide whether you need to continue being in that country or to switch in a more, I would say, preferential country. So this all, it becomes important for businesses who needs today to act proactively in light of these new tariffs. Here you will see I have put an example as talking from Mauritius. Mauritius is one of, I would say, prominent financial centers in the African region. It has been in existence for the last 30 years, the offshore sector here. Many businesses have decided to use it as a base to set up their holding company or their trading company to be able to involve into imports and exports, and eventually by setting up in such financial center where the tax regime or the fact that it forms part of so many, I would say, preferential regional access could be interesting for businesses who are feeling very affected by the U.S. tariffs. Apart from considering trading or investment holdings set up in Mauritius, many other clients or businesses are talking about setting up a regional distribution hub or creating warehousing, logistics, setting up factories in Mauritius to be able to take advantage of the fact that we're also part of AGOA. And eventually this will enable them to get access to the US market with duty-free access or reduced tariff lines as well. So, I mean, like I've mentioned, the fact that today it's high time that we consider diversifying our markets. It's time to consider optimizing the supply chain and restructuring the business the way businesses were being conducted in terms of creating companies or structures or hubs in centers, in financial centers, where you know you will get the right level of framework, be it in terms of legal, tax, or customs policies. Obviously, one of the other ways today to protect businesses against such type of new tariffs and increase in their cost is also to make sure that in the contracts everything is being well catered for. And when I'm talking about contracts here, you will see that one of the most important clauses is the force majeure clause, which is to make sure that in case of any unexpected event, there are already provisions which will allow you to continue taking advantage of what you were doing if the event did not happen. And we are also talking today about tariff adjustment clauses, which will normally enable business to renegotiate or get compensation if ever there is a new incident or event, which is the case currently, which has happened, which will cause them to be in a detrimental or prejudiced situation. So all these ways would help today business to try to mitigate the new tariff increases that have been promulgated by the US. But it goes without saying that these new tariffs have come to a surprise to all of us. It has definitely accentuated the US-China conflict, a conflict which is today affecting the whole world. And today everyone is kind of thinking whether we are on the good books or in the bad books of the US in terms of whether we are on the list, in what types of percentage we are imposing increase in terms of tariffs. So today Africa, us, we need to ask ourselves, where do we stand among all these conflicts? What will be our stand as a continent and individual African countries? So I'm going to touch base briefly on the AGOA countries. So we were among the lucky ones, a few of the 32 countries today, to be able to sign this legislation, which eventually help us to continue taking advantage of a duty-free access to the US market. So the law was there to eventually promote economic development and trade between the US and all those sub-Saharan African countries, and eventually to create a pathway for African countries to expand their exports in the US market. So today, these key features of AGOA is very important for businesses to make sure that they continue benefiting from those entitlements. Obviously, it gives you access to a market where you don't need to pay US import duties on certain list of products which have been identified. It enables you eventually to get access to a more lucrative US market to sell the products there with a greater product variety in terms of what can be done and to be sent to the US market. Obviously, it does not happen automatically. There is something which is very important because certain clients of ours have reached out to us and say, okay, so if I set up in Mauritius or any AGOA country which is benefiting from this legislation, can I just take advantage of it and not pay any new increased tariff? it's not that automatic. You need to make sure that you respect the rules of origin requirements. So these rules of origin, in fact, they are to determine whether the product that you're selling is really coming from that country, which is entitled to the benefit of AGOA. This is very important to ensure that there is no kind of abuse, and the AGOA benefits are really reaching out to African producers and manufacturers, and thereby creating more value in Africa. So you will see on the screen when you will be able really to be considered as originating the product from one of the AGOA countries, which will help you eventually to take advantage of the duty-free access to the US market. You will see there is a need to have a substantial transformation, direct shipment to the US, a kind of value added to the content, at least 35%. All these are important matters today to be considered whether or not you will benefit from those AGOA tariffs, AGOA benefits. So today, eventually, every business which is being affected needs to act proactively, needs to think what can be done. And one of the ways eventually is to consider shifting the production line or operations in countries, like I've mentioned, where they can be protected. And for us, Africa today, it's time to really, I would say, showcase our corporate collaboration between the different African countries by promoting ourselves as being a hub for certain countries or businesses which are being affected. So I will also touch base on Mauritius. For those who know about it, it's eventually a very beautiful country in terms of tourists, but also a very interesting financial services sector. It's a financial center, like I've mentioned previously, which has been here for the last 30 years, which has been a tested financial center where cross-border transactions happen every day with trade facilities, possibilities to businesses who need financing solutions. You have access, obviously, like I've mentioned, being part of AGOA, to the US market, and it also allows you to ensure that you can have the right level of support, be it in terms of financial services, business structuring, or logistic support as well. And continuing on those advantages, I think I have mentioned about the fact that many clients today are reaching out to us and say, can we create can we set up factories? Can we have warehousing facilities here, just to make sure that they have a cost-effective access to global markets? And one other very important advantage of Mauritius as well, and many of the African countries which are present today in this webinar, is the fact that there is an African Continental Free Trade Agreement which has been signed by many African countries. And today it's high time for us, Africa, to really think about diversifying our trade and diversifying the way we export our products by maybe instead of focusing only on the US market, to reach out to the other markets within the continent in itself. There are many more trading opportunities maybe which we were not forced previously to look at, but now with this new tariff lines being imposed on us, we will have no choice than really going out and considering diversifying, expanding the market to which we can continue exporting and providing our services. So, I mean, obviously with this African Free Trade Agreement, there is also duty-free access, so it makes it very competitive for those African countries to do business with each other. So this is an important aspect also to consider. I think I'm reaching out the end of my presentation. Yeah. So here are some closing remarks. I mean, all businesses today are required to eventually engage into thinking about how they can protect themselves. So doing legal planning to restructure their business, their taxation regime, to make sure that they continue to remain resilient in the face of those changing global trade dynamics. And today, Africa is being called upon to ensure that there is more regional collaboration, there is better cross-border cooperation, to make sure that we are the least affected at the end of the day with this whole new tariff line that's being imposed by the US. I do hope that there will be an extension of the AGOA law. Obviously, the previous government was really supported it. Hopefully this will continue and it will be extended for more years for us. So thank you so much for your attention. I'll be happy to take your questions at the end of it.
I will then pose the question to Ms. Taroonah from Mauritius. Given your experience in cross-border regulations and fiscal optimization, how should Southern Africa firms strategically navigate compliance and structuring challenges posed by U.S. tariffs, especially when operating across multiple jurisdictions?
So, thank you. So today, in fact, any businesses which is being affected by these new tariff lines need to think about, first of all, adjusting its strategies. Adjusting its strategies, its compliance protocols. And when we are talking about strategies, we are talking about finding other ways to expand and diversify its market, its targeted audience, try to see how they can minimize the exposure to the US market, first of all, by finding new markets to sell or export their products. We need to think about how to better find better suppliers from other alternative countries which are less affected by these new tariff lines. So really the strategy is very important for businesses today to reconsider, to make sure that they are least affected by these tariff lines. And then, like I mentioned or previously during my presentation, it is also important to review the contractual agreements and arrangements that businesses have with other countries, especially in cross-border transactions and international transactions, making sure you are covered in terms of any, I would say, unpredicted incidents such as these increased tariff lines, to make sure you are minimizing the risk of any tax increase in costs or taxes or custom duties. And obviously, the last part would be considering taking advantage of a financial center which has access to, which has preferential access to those markets where you want to export, and try to make sure you're getting the right level of support from a jurisdiction where you have, I would say, financing solutions, or in a place where the cross-border payments are easily made, and obviously where there is a tax regime or double taxation agreements network which are very well established, and you can take advantage of those benefits to make sure that your cost of production or the cost of selling and exporting remains, I would say, as low as you can, to make sure you continue making profits. So all this, I would say, summing up, the answer to this would be the strategies is important. Relook at the strategies to find new markets. And secondly, would be really looking at your business as a whole to see whether there is no need to shift part of your production lines in certain countries where you could use it as a hub for trade, such as Mauritius as an example as well. So I think this would be what a business should be doing currently to make sure that they are taking the right actions, the proactive actions, so that they are least affected by these new tariff lines.
Thank you so very much.